Now let's talk about building up and planning a unit. First of all, let's talk about what is it that you're going to get from your class observation sessions. You've been observing the class where you're going to be teaching, where you're going to be doing your practicum. You're supposed to become familiar with the whole curriculum, that is to say, the head teacher's curriculum, the school's curriculum. You're supposed to have become already familiar with the teacher's approach and emphases, the time, for example, the time allotted for the different skills, that is to say, what proportion of class is devoted for each of the skills, the type or pattern of teacher-student interaction, that is to say, is there a lot of teacher talk all the time, or how much student talk is there? Do they get to talk to each other? That is to say, is the interaction mostly teacher-student? Do students talk to one another? Do they work in groups? Do they discuss a lot, or most of the time, or how frequently do they discuss something in general, like whole class discussion, etc.? What are the patterns? Also, you're supposed to observe group management strategies that the teacher uses. How does the teacher handle different problems that arise in class that you observe? And so that is very important, because you should now be like a qualified observer, unlike when you were a student, when you could be in a role as a student, but at the same time observe how is it that the teacher handles every problem. Now, as a prospective teacher, you pay more attention to that, especially since you're going to be dealing with that group later on. Now, airtime is a very important concept that you're supposed to bear in mind. Airtime is focusing on how long each student speaks in class. So that is very important. And that is to say, how much airtime does each student have to speak, to read, to write, to listen. Also, the variety, this is things that you observe. Also, the variety of activities that the teacher presents, the sequencing, that is to say, what kind of activities comes first, second, next, why has the teacher chosen to sequence activities that way. The pacing is how fast is the teacher covering a certain activity. And you may observe that some activities are really fast-paced and others are covered more slowly. And there's usually a reason for that. You should understand why. And the timing is connected to being aware at any given point, whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end, as to how long each activity is taking. We should always bear that in mind. Now, of course, also you should pay attention to how the teacher deals with individual differences and how the teacher copes with individual differences among students. That is to say, how does the teacher deal with students' needs and with the weaker ones? How does she help them? What kind of attention or special attention, if so, does she or he pay to the weaker students, etc.? Also, you should observe students' reactions to the material that the teacher proposes. And in general, you should look at characteristics of the learning environment, from the level of noise that comes from outside in the school, to the ventilation, the lighting, the how all of the desks are placed in the classroom, etc. In general, everything that is connected and affects and has an impact on the learning and the teaching. Now, once the topic or unit has been assigned, this is the time now for your planning. Now, this is the real challenge for you. First of all, you gotta study the head teacher's textbook if you were assigned a certain unit in the textbook to teach, or other materials that may be provided by the teacher. You should consider the theme, the communicative goals, the function or functions, the vocab, the grammar, etc. You've got to study the unit as it is given to you in depth, because you're supposed to cover all those contents. And students are supposed to learn them after you teach them, right? Then with your partner, you should brainstorm about your own approach to cover the topic with your own material. How is it that you're going to approach the topic and every aspect mentioned before, such as the goals, the functions, the vocab, the grammar? How is it? How are you going to approach the topic? And in that brainstorming, don't disregard any idea that may come up. Always keep in mind whatever either one of you is saying, because it's always, it might come handy at some point and it may become a really good idea. Then you're supposed to do research. You go online mostly and look for texts about your topic, and also think of different modalities and genres. That is to say, think of authentic real-world situations in which whatever topic or theme your teaching is likely to be used. You can find articles, or in websites you can find all sorts of genres, and you can also use podcasts, songs, videos. Also, you can do research to connect different kind of activities that are speaking activities, listening activities, so that you have a lot from which to choose when you have to put it together to build your unit. That is very important. Now, planning and teaching is really a series of decisions that we make. We make decisions all the time when we plan and when we teach. And so you've got to make decisions all the time. Now, when you do research, you have a number of texts. And so, text, when I say text, it could be a video, it could be a song, it could be anything. It could be something they listen to, they watch, they read. Those are texts. You've got to choose, you've got to make decisions as to which one you're going to use, and also every other activity and strategy that you're going to use with each of those texts. Also how you connect one with the other, so that there is a flow to the whole class, etc. Now, when I said before backward design, it is because, first of all, we think of the desired results, the destination, where is it that we would like to take our kids, our students. Then we think of the how they are going to demonstrate evidence of their learning. And then after that, we determine the units and the lessons. In this case, you will have the unit assigned to you for your practicum. But when you become a working teacher, then you're going to have to build units, and determine the sequence as well. You may have a textbook or not, or you could have a textbook and then make any changes that you deem necessary. Now, the three stages in backward design are: 1, identify the desired results. That is to say, what should they know, understand, and be able to do? What contents are worth learning? What understanding or long-term awareness are we seeking? And what function or functions, vocab and grammar, should students learn? I have already discussed it a bit, so let's move on. You need to determine acceptable evidence. And this is connected to evaluation, and this is connected to how is it that concretely they will show that they have learned what you taught them. It's interesting. And then you plan learning experiences and instruction. What processes, procedures, and strategies shall we use to achieve the goals? Now, you can go to the ECAF And let's have a look at the unit plan that you're going to have to complete. Here is the beginning of the form, where you've got to provide the basic information about the school, the course, the head teacher's name, the type of school, whether it's state or private or one of the UNT escuelas experimentales, also the number of students, how many boys, how many girls, the weekly class meetings. Now, along with the class meetings, I think that you've got it somewhere else asked about directions for us within the building. How can we get to that classroom as well? So weekly class meetings refers to Monday at 9:30 and Tuesday at whatever. So that it is about the schedule, but also please add somewhere in your unit plan, perhaps at the end, you can add some directions for us from the entrance, from the main entrance of the school, how we get to your classroom. That comes in handy because many times we don't find people available that may lead us, or we have to wait for a while and waste time, waiting for someone to guide us to the classroom. So if you give us the directions, we can tell them we know where they are, and so then we can go. The student's proficiency level. Also, you need to complete with the school and the English language program characteristics. That is to say, is it hoping or expecting to develop students' 4 skills, or is it focusing on translation or reading comprehension or etc.? Then annual class goals. This is something to be provided by the head teacher. Usually this comes also from their annual planning or their annual plan, their planificación. That is to say, what are the goals that they expect students to achieve by the end of the year. And then you need to write down the unit assignment exactly as the teacher gave you, the head teacher gave it to you. That is to say, unit 6, or teach about requests, or whatever, exactly as the teacher asked you or gave you the assignment, okay? Now, the next section on that form is the result of your brainstorming, like I said before. You will have selected by now which texts you're going to be using. Now, here it says add or delete rows as necessary. Here is the author, the date of publication, the title. Now, along with the title, if you got it from some website, you've got to include the link. So make sure that you do include the link, please. Also the genre or the text type that you're going to be using, each one of them, and the cultural content. By cultural content, we mean that we would like you to determine whether the text is culturally global, that is to say, from some community around the world, or if it is Anglophone culture, or if it is the local culture. Now, what we would like you to have is some sort of balance between all 3 of them. You should not have all texts be global, or all texts be local, or all texts be Anglophone. They've got to be varied, and you've got to include all 3 of them in some sort of balance, okay? And then it says other resources or materials or bibliography, such as games, other activities, or whatever strategy that is not directly connected to a text. Oh, by the way, if you choose a song is a text, and it could be a major text in the section above as a major text, okay? Now, in the second page, on the second page of the form, it says theme of the unit and the title of the unit, if it is different from the theme. because I don't know, the theme could be, the theme could be traveling, and the title of the unit could be discovering new horizons, for example. But if they're both the same, you don't need to repeat it. You need to determine the established unit goals as set by the head teacher, because those should be your goals as well. And then it says understanding. Students will understand that, and then you complete. Now, what is it that you need to think of here? What is it that they're going to be learning in general, not necessarily connected to the linguistic aspect or the grammar. What are the big ideas? It is connected to content. What specific understandings about them are desired? And then what provocative questions will foster inquiry, understanding, and transference of the content. Remember that it is important in this section that you don't get stuck with grammar or vocabulary or function, but rather think of how is this unit going to educate them further in terms of its value, in terms of content, not necessarily linguistic aspect of it. Then conceptual contents, in which you're going to be able to discuss the rest. Students will know or will be able to do, and what are going to include here. What key knowledge and skills will students acquire as a result of this unit? Or what should they eventually be able to do as a result of such knowledge and skills? In order to answer this, or to answer these questions, what you can do is grab each of the texts that you have chosen and ask yourselves, what is it that students are supposed to learn from each of these texts? The answer to these questions are likely to be listed here. Then the grammatical focus, the vocabulary, and then the assessment evidence. Through what authentic performance tasks will students demonstrate the desired understandings? By what criteria will performances of understanding be judged? Through what other evidence, that is to say, quizzes, tests, observations, homework, journals, etc. What is it that you're going to use so that students demonstrate achievement of the desired results? How will students reflect upon and self-assess their learning? That is also very important. Remember, metacognition.